Well, I cannot tell you what will be unfolding. I don't know if anybody is able to do that. But what I know is what everybody, I think, in Israel knows for years, is that this is a repetitive cycle that happened so many times before. We hit specific 3 terrorists. Day after tomorrow, there's probably going to be 3 replacements of them. And meanwhile, if you compare the damage, Israel's southern part of the country is paralyzed. People are not going to schools. Everything that is happening. I don't know whether anybody thinks that there's any significant advantage in the total count to those acts. Now, I'm not saying that Israel can afford not to react to certain things, but to look at the Prime Minister bragging and threatening for 1,000 times the same thing is something that one cannot think that it is not related to the political situation, to the fact that he's trying to show to his own coalition partner, Ben Gvir, who is tougher and who is doing this, and also to show the Israeli public. To be honest, I think most Israelis do not believe that this is the way to solve the problem.
I have to beg a difference here, because for such a long time now, Netanyahu has been accused not just by the Israeli right, but also by the Israeli left for not responding properly to these ongoing attacks. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of Israelis who are suffering constant rocket fire, not for the past week, not for the past month, but for the past year, without proper response from Israel. These residents, who I know very well, are looking for answers, are looking for a response. That response did not come for a very long time, and it came now. Whether it will be a long-term response that will be changing the reality, probably not, but the situation as it was couldn't carry on the way it was. Now, more specifically about what's happening now. The negotiations for a ceasefire have been ongoing this evening with the participation of the Egyptians, with the Qataris, with members of the United Nations. The turning point is the fact, according to these reports on various Palestinian and media and Arab media outlets, is the fact that Israel refused to stop the targeted killing. The PIJ said there's no ceasefire unless there is an agreement of this kind. And what we saw is another massive barrage of rockets towards the Israeli south. As a result, Israel is upping the pressure and upping the strikes on PIJ members. We saw 2 strikes on buildings belonging to officials from the PIJ. Israel wants to end this. Israel is not interested in a long-scale escalation at this point. Israel doesn't want to drag Hamas into this conflict. It wants to end this right now. At the moment, as long as these barrages continue, Israel will not be able to agree to anything else.
Absolutely. I hear Ofer out there, and everybody, I think, knows that he's saying the truth, that we've been seeing the same ritual for years, every few months. And when you look at it and they say, okay, this building was destroyed by the jihad, so what? Israel is a superpower, and those people out there are nothing. And when we look at the account at the end of each round for the past, I don't know how many years, we see that we are the losing part, because if we kill a few guys over there or we destroy a few buildings, it's not equivalent to what this country is going through. These 300 rockets today and everything. And now we're looking for a ceasefire. So we're going to have a ceasefire. And then we look at the result of what happened over the last 48 hours. And Israel is the losing side. It's the losing side because the damage that was caused to Israel versus the killing of these 3 people that tomorrow evening will be replaced by other 3 jihadists is not equivalent. And everybody knows that for years. This is ridiculous.
According to all accounts, the 3 people who were targeted were planning future terror attacks on civilians in Israel.
I'm not saying that these guys are angels or they're not deserve to die. But at the end of the day, it's not an emotional thing. It's a calculated thing by a country. And if we are not able to, as many governments have promised and tried, to finish the story of Hamas and the jihadists in Gaza, if we're not able to do it, and effectively we see that we're not able to do it. None of the governments was able to do it, and now we're looking for another ceasefire. And nobody wants to go inside again with an operation that's going to kill so many. So we are in the reality that we have to acknowledge that in these circumstances, we are, as I said before, losing. Now, we can continue to do the same kind of game and keep on losing every 3 months, or we start thinking differently. And that's what I think should be done.
And what exactly does that look like? What do you mean by thinking differently?
I don't have a specific solution, but I do know that if you are applying a certain strategy time and time and time again, and it doesn't work and you lose, you do not continue with the same strategy.
Guy, your thoughts?
Well, I beg to differ. Once again, Israel has been trying to do things differently. Obviously, sitting idly by as rockets keep falling on your houses for months and years from year 2000 hasn't resulted in the motivation of these terror groups to reduce any bit. And another thing that Israel has been trying to do, is to improve the life of Gazans. I'm not even going back to the fact that Israel withdrew thousands of settlers out of the Gaza Strip as an effort to promote Gaza, to separate between the 2 people. Well, that result was a catastrophe that resulted with thousands of rockets on Israeli homes, a lot more than was before. But
many less deaths. But many less deaths since the withdrawal.
Nonetheless, the lives of Israelis and Palestinians have only gotten worse on both sides. And what Israel has been doing in recent months and years is trying to improve the daily life of Palestinians, expanding, doubling the number of Palestinians. And Ofer spoke about this. He sees them every day. Thousands of Palestinians that are able to travel to Israel every day, making a lot of money for their family compared to the poor life of most families in Gaza. This is the strategy, and this is why Hamas did not join this operation. As serious it is, Hamas has responsibility for its people. Hamas knows it has a lot to lose. The people of Gaza has a lot to lose, and Hamas had a calculated risk here not to join the fighting, because Hamas knows that it is also reliable to its people, the people who rely on working in Israel every day. Thousands of Gazans that enter every day, everyone that is traveling to the Erez crossing to Ashkelon can see them in their thousands visiting Israel, going for work. This is the incentive for future life, for good neighborhood, for better life for the people of Israel. Israel understands this very well. Hamas is starting to understand this very well, and the PIJ does not care about the lives of the Gazans. The PIJ has its own strategy based on its jihadists' movements, on the instructions it gets from Iran, etc., etc. It has no reliability for the people of Gaza. Israel certainly does. Israel does not want suffering for Gaza. Israel could have erased Gaza within a week if it wanted to. Israel does not want casualties in Gaza. This is the last thing that Israel wants, not just because of international pressure, because it sees the future.
So I'm not saying that Israel is that these guys over there are good, nice guys, and that Israel did not try other things. I agree with you, Guy. But all of a sudden, we turn Hamas into the responsible and wonderful people that a few weeks ago they were the bad guys. Hamas is doing the same now. Their strategy is to incite the West Bankers to do everything against us there. It's a tactics. None of these guys are Zionists, and they continue to do that. But all of that is irrelevant to the point that I'm trying to make. At the end of the day, it's an account. And if you're able, after the ceasefire, to sit down and honestly look at what we paid and what we gained, then you will admit that we lost yet again.
I want to pick up on something
Nobody
very
wins.
quickly, because, Guy, we only have a few seconds left until the end of this broadcast. I want to pick up, you mentioned with West Bank, over and above the focus today obviously has been across the Israel-Gaza border. There are concerns of a potential flare-up in the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Jerusalem Day is next week. Talk to us about the security concerns briefly.
We don't even need to go to next week. Just half an hour ago, a shooting on an Israeli bus just south of Nablus. Luckily, no one's injured there. One of the PIJ members targeted in that strike was the man responsible for inflating the situation in the West Bank. He's gone. Of course, someone else will replace him.